I started making music when I was 8 years old. I always had music around me when I was a kid growing up.
It's all about creativity. It's just a big playground, you know. We're just having a really good time.
You can reach people and inspire people and, open up people's minds into the possibilities.
I like to be proud of my own songs. I want to make good records.
I'm trying to create a certain sonic universe, creating this kind of magic.
And this is our soundtrack to creativity.
We've exported the House Down Built Radio to Ministry of Sound in London tonight to check in with a very old friend indeed, Mr. Fedde Legrand. Fedde, thank you very much for joining us on the show. How are you keeping, sir?
I'm actually quite good. I'm well rested. I did it last year for the first time, so I took 2 months off, beginning of the year. Off meaning not traveling, but just doing studio time. And I'm very, very happy with the outcome. So yeah, it was good.
Now, 2013 ended with a really special single from you. It was, of course, Where We Belong, alongside Direct. And as well as being a huge crossover track, it really seemed to signal where your head is for 2014 and this album that we're very much anticipating. Tell us a little bit about this changing tide for your sound and where your head's at right now.
I just think in general, if you do an album, it's interesting to explore new things. I think actually an album is the ideal way to do stuff like that. It'll be a mixed album, some very vocal stuff. So something like I did with Direct before, which actually the single still has to be released for the UK. I mean, it was out on Beatport, of course, and we just did the remixes. Some really awesome remixes, by the way. I think the Zomboy remix is number one at the moment in the genre charts, which is great. So I think, people can expect a little bit more tracks like that, like mixed with a slightly rocky or pop rocky vocal thingy. And then, just some old school, straight up, club bangers.
Do you think it's fair to say that, generally speaking, the modern market is getting a little bit sick and maybe a little bit aware of where the big room sound is and the sort of more tedious hallmarks that are now associated with it?
Well, I personally wouldn't categorize it as, just main big room, but I think, the 2-word drop, we kind of had that a little bit, I think. I think at the end of this year, I think everyone will pretty much be tired of that very specific sound, because there are just too many tracks in general, saying 1, 2, 3 or let's go or, stuff like that. And then, the drop kicks in, and I think that's also another thing, just the kick, bass, drum, and then the theme or whatever. I think, it's been too much. But, in general, I think with every new music genre or new style or new hype, it comes to a point where it just gets too much. And I think in this case, no disrespect, but there are some guys out there that actually do a really good job, but in general it's quite easy to make. So I think that's why there's such a big overkill.
Throughout your career, you've been really good at pinpointing new and aspiring talents and really giving them a spotlight they deserve, a spotlight that some might suggest they wouldn't have got without that little push from you being such a big name and a one-man brand yourself. Do you think it's getting easier or harder for new and aspiring talents to break through the industry threshold, given all the circumstances surrounding the industry?
In one way, you would say it's easier, with the power of the internet nowadays. But on the other hand, it kind of seems to be harder because most guys that, are fairly new to, let's say, the A-list were usually brought by someone, me or Guetta or Ingrosso. Or so I think actually Martin Garrix and Avicii are the only two I can think of that really made it big without any help, as far as I know. In that way, it almost seems like you need a sort of alliance or someone that pushes you forward. But I think has never been any other way. I think also, back in the day, if, Carl Cox or Stan Veit would say that someone was really cool, you would get more attention in general. But I think in the end, it's always up to you to live up to what people say about you.
So we know we've got another album from you en route for 2014, but otherwise, where would you say your creative priorities are lying for 2014?
Well, actually, that is the main thing. And what I try to do, especially with the club tracks, is to bring something that brings the same amount of energy, just in a slightly different way. So hopefully it opens up the creativity a little bit again, because I think there are more ways to do a drop than, having a blank space and fill it up with some words or the famous Eric Pritt snare or whatever, and then go into your drop. So I think that was the main thing for my club tracks. And I think for the other tracks, I just love doing vocals, man. I didn't for a while. I just concentrated more on straight club tracks. But I really enjoyed doing vocals again. So I think that's the other thing for me that I want to keep doing is like probably a few club tracks and then every now and then bring like a really cool vocal track.
Fedde, it's been an absolute pleasure. You enjoy the rest of your time in London and have a great one in Miami.
Thanks again, I will, man.